Yo, yo, yo. Hello.
Hello, guys.
Host missing.
Not anymore.
Okay, we'll wait as usually.
Yep, two
As
minutes.
usual, few minutes. Yep. So hello, Samir. Hello, Pavel.
Hey,
yeah. Let me just go to YouTube. Let's see. Whether. Yeah, we are live, but yeah, I'm not quite impressed with the YouTube quality.
Yep.
Yeah. So FYI, we are actually considering switching to Twitch because of the more options when it comes to managing the whole stream, and actually we could switch to OBS instead of this StreamYard stuff, and basically we would do the lives on the Twitch and then do the whole upload at once on the YouTube from the whole stream. So maybe this will work slightly better. Yeah.
All right, let's say 1 more minute and then let's go.
Yep.
You should be seeing my screen with the code. Let me know in the comments.
Shall I?
Right. Yeah, let's put it here.
This?
Yeah.
Yep. So good idea of Twitch. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I've seen. I think that there's just. I'm not quite sure how. Maybe not advanced, but how many programmers is how many programmers actually are streaming on the Twitch. I've seen some, but for sure the quality is way better. It's just completely different level. I think that also for the chat is more fun. There's way more options.
Yeah, you can have some
for trolling.
fun icons and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Sounds.
So yeah, and we could add our own icons to the chat. So yeah, I think that it's more fun. We could add some background music. Of course, the quiet, so you could hear us discussing, but it would be just more entertaining, and we would not get banned from the YouTube. So I think that this makes more sense. And yeah, if someone is interested in watching this on YouTube, of course we'll basically
re-upload the video.
Yeah. So you can basically get this at once on the YouTube as a. All right. So yeah, we'll of course inform you. Science and technology. Yeah. I've seen that. I think that even if you type something like the programming, there is quite few interesting channels I've seen today. But yeah, I think that basically the most important stuff is the OBS instead of the StreamYard. I think that the StreamYard is very good and very easy to set up, but I think that the OBS gives us slightly more customization stuff, right? Maybe some quite more interesting overlay on the whole stream, and maybe some sort of I don't know, the Twitter accounts or something, if someone is interested in following us on the social media, something like this. So the really standard stuff, which is not that easy to set up on the StreamYard. But yeah, we'll see, and we'll for sure let you know.
Okay, so yeah, let's start. I think let's switch to the desktop fully. All right, and yeah, last 3 weeks, because we had like one additional week break. So we finished our, not really like finished, but we left with our DTOs, entities, some in-memory data access layer, and everything was related to the host. So today I think we can add this conference entity, and then maybe we'll try to integrate some database. Maybe we will try to play with anti-framework core and just have some data storage in place. And yeah, maybe we can do it today.
Yep.
So yeah, let's jump to our entities maybe, and next to our host, let's put there the new entity, which will be one of the most important entities in our whole solution, the conference, because this modular monolith is all about managing the conferences. So once again, since this is a very simple module, let's just put there a few properties. It should be ID. So we have the ID of the conference. We'll have this host ID. We'll have the, let's say, some sort of name or the title of the conference. Maybe some sort of description. We'll have certainly something like the date. And the conference, I think it might last a day or even 3 days. So maybe something like from and to. Yeah, I think we could start with something simple like this right now. I'm not sure if it makes,
I think that we're missing the location, but
okay.
this probably will be some sort of value object which will contain
location or address, whatever. Location.
Yeah.
Let's leave it as a string for now. So at this point, we are not thinking about, let's say, the participants, tickets, or any sort of thresholds. Let's just focus on this simple conference object for now. All right, so this is our entity. And when it comes to our DTO, I think that DTO will be quite similar to this one. So let me just create a new conference DTO. Let me do copy and paste of this stuff for now.
So the only difference when it comes to DTO, the shape will be pretty much the same. Of course, we'll probably from each new episode we'll add some other properties, but basically, just to remind you, we have this approach that when it comes to CRUD, it pretty much makes no sense to distinguish the the DTO, the entities, the data. Database objects. So basically we rely on 2. So we have the DTO, which is like input output to our system, and we integrate and validate those objects using the data annotations. So we'll basically validate this using data annotations. We're not relying on any external library for this purpose, but of course you can. And so this is the only difference between the DTO and the entity at this point.
Yeah. So let's assume that we might have maybe some additional details of the conference. So let's just add this to the conference details DTO. Maybe there will be some more data in the future. And like you said, let's just put there some very simple validation attributes like we have for our host or host details actually.
Yep.
So let's say that we will have this name being required with some sort of string length. Once again, let's say from 3 to 100 characters. So there should be something like min length, 3 and then 100. The dates are required, of course. The location will be required. So for now, let's once again put there some.
I would disagree with the location, because if you have the conference that is online, then,
okay, so maybe this will be empty or null in that case. All right. So the one last thing which is required will be the description, which is actually here. Let's make it a bit. Let's say a bit bigger in terms of the available characters.
Wait, the conference details. Shouldn't we inherit from the?
Should derive from this one. All right. So very simple stuff. And now let's move forward. Let's add maybe our conference repository. I'm just going to do pretty much a copy and paste of this one. And soon we are just going to put there some database in place. So yeah, no worries. Conference repository. Okay, and yeah, let me just change this to the conference, blah, blah, blah. And the names. Okay. To be conference.
Jesus.
Okay. Yeah, maybe let's implement this one in memory. So once again, I'm just going to do copy and paste, the best technique ever. So let me just do conference repository. So in a few minutes, we'll have our entity DTO and in-memory repo. Conference repository. And
yeah, we have a comment that we are in a rush. Yeah. I think
it's a simple stuff. So we just want to move forward to something more interesting. But it has to be done anyway. Yeah. So
the thing that you need to know is that Peter got today quite strong pre-workout, so he's still on the fire.
I'm still very focused and fast.
Yeah. So this is why. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And let's add this one to our core layer register in a IOC. All right. So now we could either start with this new service and the controller, or we could plug in our database. So what do you think? Should we finish this with the controller, or maybe you should just jump to database at this point and then add the controller later on?
I would start with the service, plug it, and I think that let's just finish this part, and eventually we'll switch to the actual database, right?
All right, so let's add here the new simple service and interface, of course.
Let me just in the meantime, while you're creating this, I will just put some questions. Actually, yeah, take breath. Yeah, take a breath, dude, because you're going on fire.
Yes.
Okay, so the question.
Yeah, go on.
I've changed the layer. I think this looks more cool. I'm not quite sure. Are you going to more separate core layer to core and application? The answer is yes and no at the same time. So no, when it comes to this particular module, because it makes no sense. This is CRUD-ish stuff, quite simple, and I wouldn't say this is the core domain when it comes to. I would say that we have the domain rules put somewhere else. So this is nothing more but the simple CRUD. It makes no sense. Actually, you could, but it gives you completely nothing, I think. So we are just want to be simple in here and not specifically, I would say, tied to DDD or something more sophisticated. But once we will approach some more advanced modules, they will definitely choose slightly more sophisticated approach, like the clean architecture or something else. We'll see. So yeah, for this module, no, but you will see this definitely in this project. Yep.
So I have the interface in place, which is very simple. It's almost the same as the whole service. The CRUD style interface. Adding
it's CRUD. I mean, it's CRUD.
It's CRUD. So yeah.
What did you expect, right? Yeah.
And let's implement this one. This will look, at least at the beginning, very similar to our whole service.
Yeah, but I think that will be good to just recall what we've done. That should be quite straightforward.
Exactly. And let's move this to a separate file. Right. And now let's try to implement this guy. So once again, at first we are going to inject our repository. Our repo. Yep.
So this is something like once again, if we would have the separated layers, this would be the application layer, right? Which just orchestrates. I'm not quite sure what it actually does. It does not orchestrate the domain itself because there is pretty much no domain. The domain actually
we have
links
a
up
single
to
object.
Yeah. So it's like it orchestrates the whole use case, but there is not much domain to orchestrate. To be honest, yeah.
This
So
is very simple
host is
logic,
now-
no-brainer logic actually. Just few ifs, validation, adding the entity to database, and you are good to go. So we have our at first simple host validation. So if the host isn't found, then we're going to throw some exception. And we already have this exception in place, so I don't have to write this. That's cool. Throw new host not found exception for our DTO host ID. Okay. I think we do not consider the conference name validation, so we could have multiple conferences with the same name. We could add this later in the future, but for now, let's just assume that we might add multiple conferences with the same name, maybe for now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think that's frankly speaking, it's like there's quite a lot that we will skip, right? I mean, it's like there will be, I think, several places in which you will probably spot that we're missing something, and I believe that most of the times it's because we basically forgot about those rules, but I think that there will be few that we're aware of, but we just don't care. It's like we want to finish this whole series still in 2021, so it makes no sense to actually cover all the edge cases and make this as one completed product, because otherwise it would take a while. So it's like
exactly.
So what you're doing now, it's like, okay, so you're validating the host is null and you're throwing the exception.
And one more thing, since keep in mind that we are not passing any sort of command, we are just passing a simple DTO from our, let's say, for our controller. But I don't really want my controller to be responsible for the I generation. So I'm just going to generate this identifier within my service. But once again, I could delegate this I generation to some other place. But I don't want to do this in at the controller level. So I'm just going to this simple thing in here, at least for now. Because I would rather have it here than my controller, which should be really we shouldn't care about something like I generation. So let me put this simple line of code here. And at this point, since we have already validation in place, thanks to our API controller attribute, so on top of our controllers, we do have this, if you remember, we will have this attribute here, API controller, and we'll have this validation in place for this description, the name, and other things. So I don't really care about any other validation now. I'm simply going to just call my repo, and we can add our new entity. And at this point, most likely we could use something like AutoMapper or some simple mapping interface, because this is really pretty much assigning the values coming from the TO one-to-one. But let's leave it like this. So nothing really. Nothing that I'm proud of after having 10 years of experience, but it gets the job done.
Yeah, I think that it's like, someone is watching, is like, dude, I mean, seriously? I mean, the guy is basically just doing the manual transition from the DTO that has getters and setters public to the entity that has exactly the same structure. And it's like, are you dumb? Are you basically, have you lost your mind?
So this is what you are doing after microservices. You went to the very basics. All right. Maybe let's inject here the logger. Let's log some data. Anything.
Yeah.
So we can log something like the conference created.
That's gold right here. Yeah, I remember that.
We don't have this assembly in place. Let me just put it there.
Dude, what? Yeah. I mean that I remember that we during the microservices.net, we had like whole section dedicated to the logging, in which we discussed, right, that we have the structure logging, and
how to
basically
move away logging from the services to the decorators.
And the decorator pattern, and how you can actually put this and integrate nicely with the RabbitMQ and with the whole command pattern, the CQRS stuff. And now it's like, okay, so let's inject iLogger to the application service.
But look, this is going to be the structure logging. Take a look. I'm not going to use the string interpolation right now, like this. Okay, but I'm going to use the structure logging, which is this.
Yeah.
This is going to be logging with the structure logging, which is cool. Hopefully, it was the pattern. Yeah.
I think that you're right. Yeah.
Let's put there the conference name with ID. Okay. So DTO name. I think
Wait, did we actually configure the logger itself?
You don't have to configure it by default. If we go to the app settings there.
No, but the app logging, I think that the add logging, it's still, I think.
Yeah, but this is configured internally within configure webhost default. The logger is added here, so you don't have to configure it. Yeah, if you go there, logger is added here by default, so you don't have to configure it. It will you can just inject it from the very beginning. You don't have to add anything else.
Okay, but we're speaking about the iLogger factory. Okay.
Yeah. So, yep. Okay, so we are here.
Yep.
Okay, so we got this covered, and now let's move to another great stuff, which is conference equals get conference by ID, and return if it's now, then return now. Otherwise, once again, I'm going to do this great mapping. Since we are going to do the mapping once again while browsing the list of the conferences, I'm going to do one helper method, because I'm not going to write the same thing twice. So I'm going to have this very simple static method, which I am going to call map, and this will give me back some sort of entity, and there will be conference, and our T will be the conference DTO. So here I'm just going to return it like this, and the new constraint. Okay, so here I'm just going to assign all my values. Conference ID.
Wait, what? Why?
Because I'm going to have
okay.
between the details, DTO, and the list. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't want to write the same code twice. So we have the name, conference name, location.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, if you take a look at what we are doing, actually, you could plug in the automapper, all that stuff. But if I'm just mapping some simple entity, I can do it by hand in, let's say, 10 seconds or maybe 30 seconds, and I don't have to put the additional library to make it work. And I have everything strongly typed, which is really helpful for testing and all that stuff. So we have host ID, name, location, from. I think these are all the properties. Yep. And then I'm going to do something like private static map. Private static conference details DTO, and then map details conference, and there will be my DTO equals map details of my conference, and then DTO description equals conference description, and that's it. So I can move back here and change to something like return conference is not null, and then if it's not null, then I'm going to call map details our conference. Otherwise, I'm going to return null or default value, which is null anyways. Okay, let's move to browse. I think later on we can put there some filtering, maybe filtering by the host ID or by dates or location, whatever. for now, let's keep it simple. So I'm going to call my repository. And once again, no pagination at this point, simply fetch everything from the database.
Sorry,
Yes?
can you go back to the map for 1 second?
Okay.
Okay, wait. Do you have map details? Okay. So this is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Usually
I was thinking about whether we could
add this to the extension methods or something like this. Unless you have something else in mind.
But whether this would do the trick if we would do that the where T derives from conference details. Oh no, that would not do the trick because we could not upcast safely. Or could we? Wait. I mean the conference. If we would change this T conference instead of conference,
you want something like this?
Oh no! This would not do the trick. Okay, no, because we could not cast safely in both. Oh no, it's like.
I mean, the issue would be most likely that if you were even to upcast, then later on,
but
if you were to,
it's not safe. So we know it's
Okay, but
because
another issue could be with the JSON serialization. It would probably try to serialize all the properties.
Yeah,
including some of the properties that are not part of the details object, and then you have to do some additional magic there.
Why is the new underlined with the yellow? You can omit T, I believe.
Yeah.
Or no?
No, I just have this plugin right there to show me all the allocations I'm doing. This is not a warning. This is just from this plugin.
But it's actually this is quite interesting that you have to explicitly say that you are instantiating the T. I mean, what?
I'm making a new instance of a T here.
Yeah, but now it's like, couldn't we basically have this type?
Like this?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, makes sense. But this was one character. These are two. But okay.
No. I was just curious that. Yeah. I know. I was just curious that the writer did not, suggested this one. Since now we're
the same suggestion on the chat. So yeah, fix it to this one. All right, so then we have two lost methods. The first one is the update.
Yep.
But first we need to check if the conference exists, and we're going to do conference repository get by the DTO ID. If it's not there, then we need to make a new exception. So yeah, let's throw an exception there. Conference not found exception. Conference with ID conference ID. I can assign this maybe to some properties, which is helpful later on. And let's move this one to the separate file. Here is our exception, ID. And if it's present, then well, basically we're just going to once again assign our values from the DTO to the conference. So we're going to do this mapping once again. So I think we could actually extract maybe this method to some other map, because we are going to use the same method again. Maybe private static conference map, and now we are mapping our conference details. So I'm going to simply take this and put it here. So here is our conference mapping from DTO. Yeah, just make sure you follow conference equals map from DTO, and there is our conference.
Yep.
And what else do we have? Okay, so I'm going to do this mapping here, but I'm wondering if I can, if I do it like this, whether the later on the EF core will not complain that somehow there is a new object created. I'm not sure yet.
But what do you mean by the?
Because if I do this repository update now, right? Update async with our conference. Here I call this map, but So let's say I loaded later on from the EF core.
Oh, okay,
Object, and here I'm trying to recreate this object. So we could change this mapping to maybe something like be of a void type, and
No, but wait, but in here, but wait, the reasoning. Okay, so for all of you guys, it's like, so you're worried about the fact that we are getting the conference, so the tracker for the EF core might track the conference object,
yes,
which we get,
and then
here.
you're creating an object from the scratch. So the question is whether the tracker will not lose scope, or
I mean, first of all, it's like, it depends whether the get async will be tracking or not. If not, then we can.
But it has to be it has to be tracked, I think.
Why? I don't think so. I think if you're not tracking the changes, because here you have the get, right? So you are just getting the data. So as far as I remember, you could do something like context, then attach, and then since the conference is mapped DTO with the ID, then this should be tracked, right? So you're attaching this to the DB context. But
We'll see.
I'm
if
not
we'll
quite
start
sure.
seeing, sorry, if we'll start seeing some weird anti-framework errors, then we are just going to change this to don't create the object from the scratch, but simply we are going to pass here two parameters, the entity and the GTO, and then we are just going to assign these values. But we'll see. One more thing that we need to do.
It's tricky.
Is actually we need to validate whether the host exists. So we need to have the same validation here. So once again, I can have one more helper method. Let's make this one async task. Let's call this something like validate host async, host ID, or validates host exists async, maybe like this.
Okay, wait. But it's on the update too?
Yeah, because
okay, because you are assuming, okay, because
you could update the host ID as well for some reason. So let's assume that it's possible.
But is it?
Let's assume for now it is. We don't have any constraints, so we can update anything as an admin.
I barely think that this will ever have a. Yeah, because it's like, if I'm the host, this is my conference, right? So it's not, there is no option to change the conference host ID. So for me, the easiest way is to basically get it off the tracking, right? So basically, I'm explicitly saying that even though hosts change,
we can do conference.
I don't care. It's like, it's
okay. So we can.
We could do this like this. We can do assumption and just on the front end try to block it, right? Basically, not allow this, and this will be our.
Okay, so let me do it this way. I cannot update the host. I'm just getting the original host ID, and I always assign the same host ID.
Yeah, that's even
okay.
that's even simpler than my approach.
Yeah. So let's do it this way. And we can have the similar simple method. Let's call this one validate, maybe conference exists. So let me take this piece of code, without this one. There's our ID. And if the conference is not found, we are going for an exception.
Yep. And Peter, once you finish this implementation, we'll move to chat, okay? Because chat has a lot of questions today, which is great. And I think that it should be good to answer. Right?
Okay, sure. Okay, let me do it this way.
Conference. Try get conference. Wait, what? Try get conference? It's like.
So what I want to do now is when I do an update, I will call this method, and this is going either fail or give me back the conference. And I'm going to use the same method for the deletion, because if I try to delete something that doesn't exist, I want to fail. Or get conference.
Yeah, because the try would suggest that will be the out parameter. So it's like I would expect the boolean as a result.
Okay.
Yeah,
and the last one, which is once again conference equals get conference. So we are not going to do this, let's say, silent failure when you can delete something that doesn't exist. If it doesn't exist, then you get an error. And then there should be delete, and we are passing our conference. Yep.
I'm curious whether this actually could be, because what I don't like about this is like we are getting just to delete it, right?
I mean, we could do something like exists async or.
And the other question is whether we will go with the soft delete or not with this approach. I mean, it's like, shall we really delete this?
But the soft delete can be implemented here at the repository level, I guess.
Yeah, but with the soft delete, you can avoid having the call, right? Because you can basically change the delete to true, attach this and put this as a modified, and basically EF will perform just update on the particular ID, right? So it's slightly different. I mean, in here you could also on the repository level, but you're explicitly saying that first you want to the conference, right? So this actually makes the first round trip. I wouldn't say it's like huge thing, but we could, we could for now leave it and just maybe create some other life with some sort of.
We could also do something like even internally. Let's say if conferences and once you have EF core, we could do something like if conferences doesn't exist, just throw an exception internally from the repository level. And also do it this way, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, let's just leave it as it is, and I think that at some point maybe we'll decide to do some sort of dedicated EF episode with some tricks, something like this. Yep.
Okay. So let's just finish with the controller, and then we will move to our infra stuff. So what I'm going to do, I think, once again, I'm just going to copy this stuff, because this is going to be pretty much the same API exposed by our controllers, conference controller. Only difference that I'm going to inject here the conference service.
Dude, but could we get back to the application service for just a second? Sure. Because I see two issues with the delete async that we have.
Okay.
First one is that we are getting the conference, but you are not checking the nullability, right? So this is just the first thing. So
no, this could be an exception. This is it. I have this check here.
Okay. So the other thing is that we can have the conference that is actually already the tickets are being sold. And should I really have the possibility to delete something that is actually happening on the internet? Well, so we announced the conference. I think that we had this on the storming session.
Yeah, and I think we talked about some sort of policies there. So maybe somewhere at this point, conference with tickets. So yeah, maybe at this point we'll have to call some tickets module, or subscribe to some events, whether we can delete the conference or not. So I'm just leave this comment here for now.
Forever.
Forever, yes, forever.
No, yeah. Maybe I think that it will be good to even create some sort of dummy implementation later, just to give you the flavor. And okay, but you can move on.
Okay, so I'm just going to copy the host controller to my conference controller, and I'm just going to change all the stuff from the host to the conference, because the API I think is pretty much the same. So let me just add the missing usings there. Let's change the DTOs. from host DTOs to the conference DTOs, and then we should be good to go. There should be conference details. And here the conference details once again. And yeah,
Yep.
I think that's it. And we have our controller in place. All of the methods are being used from this controller. So maybe we can just start this API with in-memory repository for now. We'll see if the controller works, and then we'll maybe plug in database.
Yep.
Let's blister this
Looks
in the IoT
like
container. Okay, so we have service, 2 repositories, controller. All right, so yeah, let's try it out. So I'm going to go to my bootstrapper and then .NET Run. And here is our VS Code. And we should have here our REST file. This one. If the font is too small, let me know on the chat. I think this should be good enough, but I can enlarge it. And here's our module. All right, so yeah, let me put there a new parameter, which is the conference ID. And this will be once again some random GUID. And then there are our hosts, all that stuff. So I'm just going to take this hosts endpoints, and I'm going to put here the conferences endpoints, conferences, update. Of course, the payload will change in a moment, and the conference ID as our variable here. All right, so the get should work. All right, so let's start with creating the host. So there's our new host. Let's get the host by ID, and I will take this host ID, assign this one to my parameter here, and let's try to make a conference. So simply, quickly, just let me check what are the parameters. So we have the name, we have the description. Let's call this on conference 1. Description, we have the dates, and what else do we have for our conference DTO? A description, location, and dates, and the host ID. Okay, so the host ID, which is the important parameter here, then the name, location. Okay, let me put there the location. That's okay, so the location, S Street 1 to 3, from to, and the dates. So from,
yep,
let's say 2021, let's say 1st of March, and then to. Okay, and I think this should be it. Let's do the post. We have it created in place. Let's do the get. There's our conference ID. Okay, I should be able to do to get the details of the conference. Should be able to update the conference as well. So let me take this here. And let me just check one thing in the controller. When I do the updates, okay, we are assigning the ID. This is fine. Let's change this one to, let's say, conference 2. Update should succeed. Let's see. All right, so, okay, did it succeed? I think it didn't. The reason being, let me check. Okay. Update, conference service. All right, so the update didn't succeed because actually we have the new object, which isn't part of the conferences. So the update failed within our in-memory repository. So let me just fix this update, because it will not work in that way. And I'm afraid that the EF core might also have some issues later on. So let me just do this map method here, like this conference And let's just do this assignment here explicitly, so we don't have any issues later on with the EF core as well. So this is going to be our out mapper here. Host ID, name, and the remaining stuff, description, location, from, and to. Okay, let's jump here, which is the map conference. Okay. And one more mapping, which is here. So conference equals new conference. And then let's call map. Okay. And we should be good to go. And the EF core should be happy later on as well. All right. So one last try for the update. And if the update works, we can move forward. So let's do the updates. Okay. Oh, of course, I restarted the app, so all my data is missing.
Yep.
Which is great. Get host by ID. I have the new identifier of the host. Let's do the post. The new identifier of the conference, which is this value. And let's do get. Let's do an update. Let's do get. Okay, works. Cool. And let's do delete. And if I do multiple times, I'm getting an error. So everything works. All right. So maybe we can switch to the chat for a moment, and then I think we can add the database to our code.
Yep.
Let's see. Any questions so far?
Wait, let me just show our marks. Something like this, right? Right. Wait.
Hmm?
There's quite a few questions actually.
Okay.
I'll go from the top. Let me just blah blah blah. I have a question about DDD. If I have multiple providers with some domain, I can share the domain with all providers. I'm not quite sure what do you mean by the provider.
Yeah. If you could explain
is-
a bit, what do you mean by these providers?
I mean, if we are speaking about some sort of bounded context, I mean, there's a concept of shared kernel in which you could create some sort of back for the, let's say, the value objects or something that could be shared all across the modules, the context itself. But I'm not quite sure whether you meant that by the word provider. Should I use value objects in DTOs or CRUD entities? I mean, something like address or email with regex inside that ensure my value object is always correct. I mean, I personally prefer value objects. So I personally would say yes, even though it's the DTO or like the CRUD-ish stuff. I think it's no big deal, and it's like it's still safe because it's like immutable object. So I would go for yes at this case, unless it's very straightforward and it actually makes no sense to encapsulate this further. I would prefer using value objects. It's not like you must go fully DDD to actually adapt this. It's like something that you can adapt with no big deal. Wait. Since it's CRUD, is it worth to return DTO instead of entity? As we mentioned, Jesus Christ, my hair is like crap. I mean, as we mentioned, it's like the DTR we use both for the as an input and the output, and the only actually reason that we use it is because we have the data annotation for the validation. So it's like,
but later on, there might be some different properties added to the DTOs. So it's not a lot of work to be done. So we try
in the CRUD, in a CRUD, it's like, in many cases the write and read model will not differentiate that much, right? So it's actually, it may seem like, okay, so we're wasting time, but it was like the copy paste. So I wouldn't say it's like big deal. But you can use the entity. Wait, is the question? Wait, what? After
no, it was our map method, I guess.
But what was wrong with the new?
No, I think it was just a suggestion.
To use it or not? Okay.
Yeah, to use.
I don't get it. Then we have okay. I think okay, wait. Okay, Łukasz replied. By this, you require parameterless constructor. Okay, that was about the generic method, right? Yeah. Because if you would not put this the new constraint in the generic, it's like
create the object actually.
Yeah, actually, it's true. The fun fact about the C# is that I'm not quite sure. I think that this haven't changed. Is that the generic constraint is not the part of the signature of the method, which I think that in the writer I've shown on one workshop I've shown this example when you have the T with the I enumerable and the compiler tries to, could not guess what was the correct overload for the generic method, and this is due to the fact that the generic constraint is not just the part of the signature, so that could sometimes it's kind of tricky. Okay, I think we can have a base entity and move the ID there. Okay, you mean for both the conference and the host? Yeah, we could.
Yeah, but I think later on, once we start doing some shared kernel, then we'll have some sort of maybe base entity or base root.
Yeah, wait. Yes, please zoom it. Zoom it, dude.
Zoom it. I did one more level.
Yeah. Wait. Which is
which
extension? Is that extension?
You mean the REST client or something else? Because if you're asking about the REST, this is the one.
The REST client.
Yeah. So I guess that was the question.
Wait. Some providers, example, iHotel provider.
Still don't understand provider in what the meaning.
But is it
what's the meaning of the provider?
But is it this the external system? I mean, what is this provider? Another module? Some sort of? Yeah, we need more details. I still don't get. Okay. I think that's pretty much it when it comes to questions.
Okay.
Or I missed something?
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. All right. So let's move to our beloved anti-framework core, with which I've been working on my daily, let's say, daily job with EF core, but I'm not going to say I'm a big fan of this. I like the previous anti-framework better, but well, this is what it is.
I mean, yeah, The issue with the EF core is that actually it was shipped way too soon, right? I mean,
Yeah,
back in I remember that I first launched EF core when there was like .NET Core, the second RC. I think there was even not the 1.0, and I remember that was a huge pain, uh, especially when it comes to. I mean, let's be serious. I mean, the transition from for me personally from the .NET framework to .NET Core was slightly at the very beginning during the RC was like huge step, and basically because I was not used to the Linux stuff, to the terminal, except the Git. So it's like I had my Visual Studio. I could create the solution, the whole project, and now you had to do at that point do everything from the console, generate the solution. So it was like, okay, so this seems like kind like step back
yeah.
because
I
there was
think,
no tools.
and I think it took this library about over 2 years to actually implement something like grouping on the database level or lazy loading. So some features that you would expect from the beginning, it took like two years to
Yeah,
implement.
yeah, and that's not even the thing. I mean, I remember that the async stuff was not present, and basically
Mhm.
any async overload prone something like not supported exception. There was no option for as you mentioned, the grouping, those like weird stuff that you had to group on the same entity. So the expression was like T goes to T, and there was some weird workarounds. So yeah, the thing about the EF core was that for the people who were used to EF6, like I did, once you actually got this transition to EF core, was like, are you mocking me? Are you serious? What the hell is this? Right? It's crap. And I think that this impression stays for some, yeah, for even for today. And a very good example is that actually we were quite lucky because by the time we are recording this, the EF core introduced big surprise, the many-to-many relationship that could be configured implicitly with no external configuration and with no weird connections in the Fluent API. So it's like we are now in .NET 5, and this is something that was highly requested and got implemented in this version. So it's like, what the hell is that, Microsoft? I mean,
So let's wait for .NET 6. Maybe there will be more killer features in place.
yeah. Another thing for me personally is that since I was working with the NoSQL databases for quite some time, I think that for 3 years, I think it's safe to say that I had a 3 years break from the relational databases. I completely forgot about the stuff that you need to care when it comes to SQL, right? So about this whole tracking, about combining
all
this
these
with
configurations, migrations, including some collections, all that stuff.
Yeah, and the EF core, let's say comparing to Mongo, which also the Mongo client for .NET is not perfect. It has its limitations, and sometimes, especially if you want to do something more sophisticated, depending on what you have in the document, it could be quite pain in the ass when it comes to getting the data. Of course, the EF here is way better because you have iQueryable, you can do fancy stuff and so forth. But yeah, once we and you will see this, that once we will actually adopt this and try to combine with the clean architecture, with the domain driven design, it's not
more difficult.
Yeah, it's that's quite catchy, I would say. Yeah. All right. Wait, two more questions and we'll move forward.
Okay.
What do you prefer in the Rider ID instead of Visual Studio? I would like to switch to Rider to try it, but it's pretty hard for me because feel like I'm addicted to VS. The one general argument is the performance. I mean, the Rider is freaking fast comparing to Visual Studio, especially if your solution is way is quite big, right? So it's like no comparison. If you're using the Visual Studio plus you're using the what was how was that
The
called?
Sharper?
Yeah, the
Sharper?
ReSharper. Then I haven't seen the PC that handled this nicely. This combo, and depending, even assuming that you have a lot of gigs of RAM, it doesn't matter because it's 32 bits. So the address, so by definition, even though you have like 64 gigs of RAM, it doesn't matter. So it's like,
Yeah. I have pretty powerful desktop PC, and if I start VS with ReSharper, I feel like I want to kill myself, which is I never start this. And for me, besides the performance, the important part is that Rider works everywhere. I use Linux, Windows, and Mac OS, and it works everywhere, and it's very fast. I mean, maybe not very fast, but much faster than the VS with ReSharper, and the ReSharper is part of the Rider.
I mean, yeah, I remember that I switched from Windows to the MacBook. I was like, yeah, something once again around the .NET Core 1.0. And I remember that Microsoft announced the Visual Studio for Mac, and I was like, whoa, great. So this is something I was looking for, especially that I'm now transitioning to the MacBook. And then I run this. I was like, I mean, dude, what the hell is that? I mean, it's like, that was a design for the Xamarin. There was a lot of features, but comparing to Rider, it's like...
Yeah, but the Rider's been very buggy at the beginning. I haven't used this for like over a year. After a year or two, it got stable. So
I think it's safe to say, I think that Rider has a lack of the features when it comes comparing to the enterprise version of the Visual Studio. So it's like there was quite a lot of features in the enterprise version before they were implemented back in the Rider. But if you are like community user or even the professional user, I think it's like on the daily basis, it's like completely different level.
They started adding recently, let's say, some class diagrams, code generation.
Yeah.
So we're there probably. Anyways.
Okay, so that was the first thing, and there was also a question. So you are using Mongo driver instead of...
No, we are using NT framework.
No.
I never used the EF for MongoDB.
Me either.
I think there is this because the EF core is more like a generic library you can connect to, I think, Azure Cosmos DB or some other libraries, but databases. But I never used it actually.
Is it actually that there is something like honestly, no joke. I've never heard about the EF for MongoDB. Really? There is something like this one? But it's like...
I think there is for Cosmos DB, but
yeah,
but I'm not sure about the
Cosmos.
I'm not sure
the
about
Cosmos
F-core.
you can use. Wait, I'm checking the
official
database provider, SQL Server, SQLite, in-memory. Cosmos DB is here. Postgres, MySQL core, blah blah blah. That's some other stuff. Jet. Because I know that you can put the Cosmos as in front of the Mongo, so that would do the trick. But I think, as far as I know, the Azure, there's also quite some limitations. But can I plug it to the Mongo directly? That's... If you could say a few words in the chat, that would be cool. And okay, one more thing. Do you use relations in NoSQL Mongod DB? How often do you use this feature in NoSQL?
There is no relations, but I mean, sometimes you have this sort of identifiers between different collections, but there is no like joins. You just grab data from one collection, and then let's say you merge it with data from the other collection, or maybe you do some sort of map reduce, but there's like no relation.
Yeah, the document database is basically aggregate oriented, so it's like you are getting whole document at once, and there is no need to do any sort of joins, right?
Yeah.
So this is great. This works great actually when it comes to this combines well with the DDD or something in which you have the actual aggregate also in your code, Because when it comes to relational database, especially if you are using lazy loading, there are some pitfalls, and you need to be really extremely careful when it comes to fetching the aggregate from the relational database, because you might fall into the pitfall in which the root is getting at, let's say, some point of time, and let's say some sort of collection that is inside this aggregate could be fetched afterwards, and that will be inconsistent from the aggregate's perspective in your code. So there are a few pitfalls inside. With the MongoDB, it's basically not possible because you're storing everything at once in the one aggregate, and the representation in the document is quite similar to the one that you have in the code.
Okay. All right.
Right. I think that we can move on. We will push the code to GitHub repository.
Yeah, at the end. So no problem, as always. All right, so let's switch. Sorry. Let's open it full screen. So yeah, let's add the EF core entity framework was like .core framework. I think, yeah, that's the one. And yeah, let's I'm going to use the PostgreSQL because this is a database I've been working with recently for some time. So at least I'm at least a bit familiar with PostgreSQL. So let's not go for a SQL Server as usual. Let's try something else. And we have this official driver for the NT framework, which is called npg SQL, and there's this library. And actually, this library, this npg SQL, the .NET, or actually .NET Core, .NET 5 PostgreSQL clients, the database client is one of the fastest in the world. So the code behind the npg SQL is just awesome, and it's very performant. So if you're looking for something fast, go for this one or go for Dapper. So we have the EF core and we have this extension for the PostgreSQL. So let's start, and let's maybe put there some sort of directory, whatever, database, Postgres. Okay. Yep. And let's start adding our database shared code here. And I think what we are going to aim for is for having the unique DB context for the module. So since this is going to be the modular monolith, and as we said in one of the first, let's say, episodes, in the modular monolith, we want our modules to like encapsulate the database. So we don't want to have one big DB context that would be, shared by all the modules, but instead we would like to have DB context per module, and maybe at the database level, we are just going to use different schemas. So let's say single database, same database, but different schemas per module. So this is what will be our goal. And this is achievable with EF core, of course. It takes some maybe additional code to be written, but it's fully doable. Okay, so let's start with the options, maybe. So the Postgres options, and I think we will need the connection string, and I think this is going to be only, yeah, at least for now. Maybe later on we'll put there some data seeder or stuff like this. So we have the Postgres options. Do we have any other options type? Not yet. All right. So let's add some maybe extensions. Yeah. Let's make this one static. And let's add here a method. Let's call this one. So we're going to follow our convention. And let's call this something like @Postgres. And actually, I'm going to make this one the internal because I only want this one to be called by our API. I don't want each module to call this one. So I'm going to make this one the internal method. It's our service collection. And what I want to do now is I simply want to register the options for now. So we want to register the options in the IOC.
Yep.
And I think we have no options types anywhere there yet. So what I'm going to do, maybe let's do a helper method for our options, because I'm pretty certain that we'll have a lot of different option types for different parts of shared infrastructure. So maybe let's create some sort of helper method, maybe somewhere here, for actually resolving our options. Okay. So what we can do is the following. Let's add there a new method that will give us back some sort of T. Let's call this one get options or bind options, whatever, for our T. And we'll have this service collection there as our parameter. And the section name. So the section that we want to bind. And here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build our service provider. So from the services collection, I'm going to call this build service provider. Then I'm going to resolve our configuration object. So service provider, and then get our iConfiguration. And I'm going to call the configuration. Sorry, let's put there a section name. So from our configuration, I want to get the section. I will ask this configuration object for our section by the section name, and then I want to bind this section to our options type. Okay. So at first, I want my T to have this constructor. So we are going to create our options object like this, which is new T, and then I want to call this section. And there will be this bind method. Okay, as you can see, so I'm going to bind this to our options like this. And then I can register this in the IOC container. So we can return the options. Okay. I hope that this code is not not complex enough. So creating our service provider, asking for the configuration object, getting this section by the name, creating the options, binding the options, binding this section to the options object, returning the options. And then I'm just going to ask here for our options, which is the services, and then get options. And I'll ask for the Postgres options. And let's say that we'll have a section name called Postgres in our application settings.
Can you get back to the get options?
Sure.
This method. Why is red?
No, it's an additional. It just shows you the boxing.
Okay, boxing.
Yeah, this is a plugin. This is not an error.
The issue, maybe not the issue, but something that also I think that it's worth saying is that keep in mind that what we've done in here is it has its pitfalls also. So once you just need to remember that once you actually call the build service provider explicitly somewhere during your initialization, then it actually builds up the new registers everything once again, right? So I think that we had this issue somewhere even back in a Paco, that because we are calling the build service provider explicitly and we were not using the lambda expression for the register, because the register for our IOC also has its overload in which you basically pass the expression. It's safer rather than having the service provider being built explicitly, because then you might have some sort of bugs, especially if you have some sort of singletons that you're trying to let's say that you've done something and then you call the build service provider and you've done something again. So I'm not quite sure whether this actually is the best option or whether this shouldn't be changed to, let's say, register options past the T and do this using the lambda. I mean, it can be the same.
But keep in mind that in some places you just want to get the option objects. You don't want to register it every time. I mean, you could, but it won't change a thing.
Yeah.
But in that case, this is, I mean, fine, because this is just a dummy, let's say DTO, so it won't break anything. But in other scenarios, this could be
I mean,
potentially
it still calls the service provider, so you need to be aware and you need to use it wisely. And because especially if you're bootstrapping the application, some weird stuff might happen.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So before we move on, let's add the connection string to our settings. So we'll have this section, which is called Postgres. And then we'll have this connection string property. And actually, I'm just going to copy the connection string from my other project, which is the dummy connection string for the Postgres without any authentication. So let me just take the connection string from the Postgres. And okay, let me put it there, equals, and let's call our database, MM or Modular Monolith or whatever. Not sure if dash is allowed or underscore. We'll see. Right, so this will be our database. The default username, no password.
Yeah.
All right. So
Wait.
the next thing, yeah.
Emo still can use iOptions of T. Yeah, I mean iOptions of T has a lot of advantages.
Yeah,
it's just clearer to have this. The iOptions of T is way better when you have something like you want to swap in the runtime. You want to swap the values for the settings. It does the trick. But if you basically have this assumption that this will not be changed, then I mean, it's good to have this as a single.
We do not care about options monitor or that stuff. We just have it registered as a single.
We do not care about good practices and this shit that the Microsoft gives us. Yeah, it's just
Let's get the job done. Okay, and well, actually, at this point, you could, think of calling this services and then add anti-framework. Let's say this method, right? And all that stuff. But sorry, add DB context, all that stuff. But keep in mind that we don't want to call this here, because at first, this method is going to be called only by our API. So we are going to call it here from our add infrastructure. So let's actually call this services at Postgres like this. So we are only calling this once, and we don't want to have, like I said before, the one global DB context. Okay, so we want to have this DB context which is unique per module. Which is why we're going to actually expose one more method. Let's call this iService collection. And maybe we can call this, once again, add Postgres or add DB context, whatever. Let's call this add Postgres. And we have this T parameter. And this is going to be our DB context. Okay. So once again, the services collection. And then our T is going to be the DB context. Okay. So with this method, which as you can see is public, this will be called from our services, from our different modules, and this will be responsible for registering the new DB context, which is unique per the particular module. So what I want to do here is I want to ask for our options, which is why I'm going to copy and paste this end of code. We are going to reuse the same connection string, which is obvious, and then we are going actually to call this add DB context here. So DB context of T, because we have the generic constraint for our T. And then internally, we are going to call this use this npd SQL. So we are going to call this, and we are going to use this Postgres SQL provider here, and we are going to pass our connection string. So it can be constructed with proper connection string. So at that point, we should have the properly registered DB context. And one more thing, which I think might be also helpful, is that if we decide to go with the migrations approach, which I think is pretty common, whenever you use anti-framework and your database is going to evolve in the future, so most likely you want to have some sort of migration in place. So we might use this default approach with the migrations. So here, let's do this nasty trick with the service provider once again. So I'm going to create this service provider, and since I actually registered this DB context, I'm going to call my service provider to give me the instance of this DB context. Okay, so I want to ask for this DB context, and I'm just going to call this DB context database, and there should be this migrate method. So actually, when I call this method, which might not be the best place, but when I call this method and when I register my DB context for the module, I also want to migrate my database for this particular DB context, for this unique module. We could think of actually, sorry, maybe extracting this to some background job or some startup task. But then we would have to keep track of all of the DB contexts. So probably it could be done maybe with some reflection or something like this. But for now, let's just leave it this way. Yep. Maybe we'll make it look nicer later on. Yep. All right, so we have the Postgres. So yeah, what we can do now is, well, we can, I think, try to create our very first context. So let's jump into our conferences module. Let's jump into our data access layer. And then let's go for our new context. And well, let's call this one conferences DB context. And this is going, of course, to derive from the DB context. So we are going to add the reference to our shared infrastructure projects. All right. And then let's expose our two DB sets. So the first one will be the conferences, and the second one will be the hosts. Okay. And as far as I remember, I'm not sure if it still has to be done, but sometimes, at least with the migrations, there sometimes is this issue with missing constructor. But we'll see if we start this up, whether this will succeed or not. One more thing that I want to do.
I'm pretty sure this might fail.
We'll see. Most likely will fail. So we are going to change our schema. So I'm going to call this has default schema, and I want to keep my database under, let's say, conferences schema. So this will be our unique DB context with unique schema per module. And then we are going to apply all the configurations. So we can call this nice method, which is part of the library, apply configuration from the assembly. And then I can ask for this particular assembly. So what we can do, if we have some specific EF core configuration, we can actually add them here. So let's say I'm going to make this directory called configurations. And let's put there some dummy configuration, right? Just for the sake of the this sample. So let's say conference configuration. And this is going to inherit from this INT type configuration from the EF core type configuration for the conference. And if I want to do something specific for our entity here, I'm just going to call this builder, do all this stuff internally. And the same would be for our host. We have the host configuration. I think for now, we are not going to put there anything. So I can just leave this empty, but if you want to have some constraints, some indexes, all that stuff, we would put it here. And this will be automatically added to our DB context because we are calling this method to apply this configuration. Yeah. And I think the one last thing that we want to do, or actually two things. At first, we are going to call this helper method, this one. So we're going to call this from our module. So somewhere here we can call services and then add Postgres. And then we are going to provide our conferences DB context, which is the first part. And then the second part, or we can even make it look nicer. Let's put me there. Let me just put there some internal extensions. Internal static class extensions. My service collection. Let's call this add Postgres, or maybe add not Postgres, maybe something like add database, whatever. Or database. This service collection services. So I'm just going to hide this registration here. We're going to call add DB context, conference DB context, and also here we are going to override our repositories. So from our core layer, I'm just going to call add database, which is our internal method. All right. So the one last thing for today, I think, will be to implement these two repositories to use the DB context, and then we'll see if we can, add some migration to our core code, and if we will be able to see some data in our database.
Yep. So I don't know whether shall we add another implementation, or we'll basically delete this one and start from scratch?
Well, let's add another implementation actually. So maybe let's put there something like EF, whatever. And then let's add here the new conference EF, or database repository, whatever. So for this one, we are going to use our DB context. So I'm simply going to inject this DB context, our constructor. And I'm going to assign this to the private field. And I'm going to ask for our DB set, which in that case is the context and then conferences. And, well, basic EF core stuff. So for the gets, we can start using our iQueryable helper methods. So the conferences, single or default async, find by ID. Next one, browse async will actually require to call await. So I have to do await, and then our conferences to list async. The next one is adding, and yeah, the important part. I'm going to call this DB set at async. Also here, I'm going to call our DB context save changes. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want my repository to actually save the changes. I don't want to, delegate this, delegate these save changes to some unit of work. Maybe later on, we'll implement some unit of work or some transactions, so we could, add or update or delete multiple entities at once with some additional transaction in place. But, I want to treat my repository as something that actually saves the data, not just tells the EF graph to save it and then does nothing. Wait for some external save changes call, which is why I'm calling this explicitly here. For updating, there is just this update to let our graph know that we changed the entity. And once again, I'm going to call this save changes. And a similar one for removing, which is the remove and then save changes. Okay, so there is our repo. And one more repo is going to be for our host. So I'm just going to do my quick copy and paste of this stuff.
And actually, I think that we could even build this whole CRUD implementations on top of the context itself using some attach and state changes. But it's like, I think that this is the easiest way to achieving so. For now, it's quite straightforward since we're doing the CRUD stuff. Later, it won't be, I think, that easy. Once we'll reach something more complicated, and this tracking will be really important for us.
Exactly.
The host
Implemented
repository,
some
yeah.
weird history repository. I don't know where it came from, but
What? The history repository?
Some migrations. Oh, there were some internal migrations.
Okay.
All right.
I've just seen one quite interesting thing. Could you Control B on @async method? Control B on the host.
Yeah, let me see. Here.
Yeah.
Go to the definition.
Yeah, Control B. Yeah.
Which is F12 here.
Oh, sorry, you have F12.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's quite funny that you can see right on. It's like not implemented exception, and in the then you have the explanation that's like, yeah, but that's quite funny that this
Nice.
actually is
okay. Makes sense.
Yep.
All right, so let's add our repositories. I think both of them can be with scoped lifetime. So the conference database repository, SI conference repository, conference database repository, and for our hosts, host repository, host database repository, host repository, of course. We could actually remove this too, but we don't have to because this will be overridden anyway by the database, because this is happening after we call this lines of code, so this will be overwritten. But you know,
Is it?
just comment this one out.
Wait,
Yeah,
what?
this is. I'm calling a database after I register the in-more repository, so this will be injected.
Wait, but isn't this?
Yep.
It's like
the last one wins
sure.
always. Yeah, the last one will win always.
Isn't that this actually is now enumerable of this interface?
Yeah, I mean, you can ask for the enumerable and you will get two registrations, but the default will be always this one.
Okay, I thought that, yeah, you mean that there will be just one implementation. That's completely, yeah.
So
always the track, yeah. Yeah, that's logic, yeah.
Okay, so before we start, the interesting part, let's try to actually run some sort of migration. This is going to be interesting. Because let's see what happens if we start the app now. Most likely something will fail. At first, I need to start a PostgreSQL. So I'm going to start a PostgreSQL for the Docker. Okay, started. I'm going to start a PostgreSQL for the Docker. And yeah, let's just add the new file here. Let's call this one Docker compose YAML. Yeah.
Wait, what? You actually... Okay, because it's
I had no migrations in place, so
yeah, it's on demand that would fail. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to once again just take some stuff from the other project that I have. I'm just going to copy my PostgreSQL Docker compose line of code. 1 second. Okay, so something like, all right, doesn't look nice. 1 second.
Yep.
I have to format my line of code. Let me copy this here. Okay. All right, so input it there. The networks, let's call this one Modular Monolith. Yeah, and let me just put I need to do at first the volume. So the volume will be our Postgres with local driver, so I don't want to lose my data anymore. And the network will be networks.
The network actually is not necessary at this point, I think.
Sorry?
I think that the network at this point is not that important.
Oh yeah, makes sense. Yeah, right.
You are just Dockerizing one thing, so
yeah, true. So yeah, the network isn't important there. We are not running our app in Docker, so yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this should be just fine. There's our volume. Okay, So let's see if I do now the Docker compose up. Docker compose up -d. Let's see if this one will start. Okay, Docker ps. Okay, it seems that it started. There is no errors, so it's ready. So I will start a data grip, and I will see if I can connect to my database. If you want to use, there is of course the free admin tool for the PostgreSQL. Sorry, I don't remember the name. And there's also the
plugin for
Azure,
Visual Studio Code.
Yeah, the plugin, and there's also this Azure SQL Studio, right?
Yeah, probably. I don't know.
Let me see if I can.
But it's quite funny because it looks like we were sponsored by the JetBrains. So it's like, yeah, the writer is great, the data grip, yeah.
Okay, made it bigger. So yeah, I think I am connected to my database.
Yep.
I simply call this add data source PostgreSQL with the default data, which is the local host, and the user, which is Postgres, and there is no password. So this is my default connection, and as you can see, it works. So I'm connected, and of course, there is no database yet, so nothing here. All right, so let's try to add our migration. Let's see if this is going to work or if this is going to fail. So we are jumping back here into our modules. Let's go to our conferences and let's go to our core layer. Now, one more thing that we want to achieve is actually we want to keep our migrations not at the API level, but let's say under core and maybe here. I want to keep my migrations somewhere here under the core layer and this directory, this DAO directory. So we are going to use our beloved .NET EF tool with the unicorn in place. I have the latest version. So yeah, let's go for the database migration now. So .NET EF, and then migrations, and then add. Let's put our migration name. Let us call this conferences module init. And then we need to specify our startup project. All right. So the EF core, this EF tool needs to be aware how to actually start our app, because it cannot start our API from the core layer, right? There is no startup, there's no program CS. So we have to point our .NET to our bootstrapper, to our app, okay? So there is this startup project parameter. So I'm just going to point this to my bootstrapper project, which is one level above. Bootstrapper and this one. So this is our startup project. And then our output directory is going to be...
And the context itself first, I think.
We don't need to specify context. We have only single one here, so there is no need.
Okay, but yeah, we'll use it later. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And the output directory will be our DAO/migrations. And let's see.
Should be this under the EF also? DAO EF?
Yeah, it could be. So we can remove this in a moment. Okay. Of course, we have to reference this great, this great library. So we have to actually add this reference to our API project, which makes total sense. But that's how it is. All right, so we have the design now. Let's see what failure we are going to get now. And let me put there.
I'm waiting. Yeah. I'm truly waiting for this Twitch migration in which there will be the kappa
Okay, we have no database provider has been configured for this DB context. Okay, so
the add Postgres is present.
Let me see. It's not present. It makes sense, but okay, let me actually check if we have to add Postgres. Okay, but I think it's not needed. I think I also write this in the official documentation or some comment on GitHub that it's not needed. On configuring, there's always issue with bootstrapping EF core, especially if you try out something new. Oh, we didn't code this method for some reason. That's interesting. Let me see.
Wait, what?
How is it possible? I think we did. At DB context. Oh, it should be at Postgres. I'm dumb. Yeah. Now it makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. So, once again, another failure. I'm pretty sure now. Okay. So the same stuff. At DB context, no database provider. All right. Let's see.
Wait, can you see the? Can you show me the context itself?
Conferences DB context.
Wait, what?
Let me try to do one thing with this constructor, because this is sometimes required to pass this DB context options and call this base method with our options.
Yep.
So let's see if this is going to help.
I think this should do the trick.
I think there was a different error for that. We'll see. Oh yeah, let's run this with -v, which is the verbose. Yeah, so it cannot create an object because, and if I remove this one, yeah, it cannot create an object because it cannot call this constructor, which doesn't have the parameters. And if I remove this one, I'm going to see the failure. Wait,
what? What?
Yeah, these are the migrations. So, all right, and without this constructor, what we are seeing here is it cannot actually find the database provider. So let's try.
Can you say? Can you go to? Wait.
Yep. I think we could try to add this provider here.
No, but the extension for the Postgres. Could you show this one once again?
Sure.
Wait. What? So npg. Okay, SQL. That's okay. It's weird. Okay.
Let me try something sort of dummy now. I just want to try private constructor. If I do private constructor, I'm afraid it won't help, but I can try it out. And I have one more idea in mind. So if I do private one, I think this won't help, but let's see. Yeah, same issue. So what we can actually try to do is, at least for now, there are like two ways. There was this one weird way in which we could, there was this interface, some sort of factory that you can implement to resolve your DB context. The other way, just to see if we can make it work, is actually the following. Let me just check the logs. And in the error logs, it asks us to call this on configuring. So one dummy approach is if I were to call this options builder and use our Postgres. And let me just, just to see if this is going to work, let me just try to do something like copy this connection string and let's see if this is helpful in any way, at least for now, this line of code. And I'm going to remove this one. Oop. But yeah, with these migrations, things always get weird. Yeah, so now it worked. Yeah, as you can see, the issue is the following. If I add this public constructor here, then the migration has no idea how to actually call this constructor and how to provide this parameter, right, to our constructor. But if I remove this constructor, then the migration can start, but the actual DB context has no idea that we are using PostgreSQL, because here within our add Postgres extension, we actually call this add DB context with this additional DB context options builder. All right, so this is just great. I remember there was like one additional way to make it work, and it was related to implementing some sort of weird service, some sort of weird factory for our DB context. But maybe let's leave it like this for now, okay? Just so we can see if our repository will work, and then maybe in the next episode we'll just clean this up. So let me just put the comment here. It was our DB context to do fix this. Migration is broken with price constructor. Okay, so yeah, it worked. So now let's try to run our app, and if everything is fine, our app should actually create a database, and it should apply the first migration to our database. Let's see. Okay. And now if I want to start the app, I have to include this guy. This is great, right? So yeah, I can actually remove this one and start the app, and this is going to be, just right. So this is very obvious for anyone who starts with EF Core, right? But well, at least it worked, and you can see it added this migration. We have all the SQL logs in there, and if we go to our database IDE, and if I refresh my website, refresh my database list, I should be able to actually, there's our database, and I can look for the schemas. There's our schema called conferences with our tables. In the public schema, there is the migration history, right? So this is the EF Core migration schema, and let's try to invoke some methods. So let's do something like post hosts, all right? Let's do get hosts, and let me take this identifier, put it there, and let's call add a conference.
Okay, the chat says that you can create public class design time DB context that derives from iDesign time DB context factory.
Yes. I was looking for this interface, so thank you, because I couldn't remember the name. And yeah, I think this can be implemented. So let's give this one a try. Let me just take this name.
I mean, this naming is it's like pure gold. It's pure gold writing here. Yep.
Let's something like iDesign DB time DB context factory of our
conference
context. So here, okay, the question is, how do I actually I have to pass this now somehow. But wait, it doesn't make much sense. I think it doesn't make much sense. I mean, it will most likely work, but let me just check something on Google.
Yeah, let me just see. Okay, so it's like, wait, what? Where the hell is this? The Microsoft com says, I mean, they're using the explicit version, which is weird. Data source block DB. Wait, what? They accept the command line argument. So it's like, oh, okay. So this args is from the DB tool, right? So
Yes.
it's from the EF tool. So it's like, but wait. So you need to provide the connection string for. You need to provide the connection string for this migration.
Could be.
Because otherwise it makes no. So it's like, okay. So it's like in here you specify that you want to use the Postgres and pass the argument. Let's say the first argument, because this is like args from that was captured from the command line.
Okay, let me just check one more thing. Yeah. I'm not going to say I missed the EF core.
Yeah, I'm not that good with EF core, to be honest, either.
Let me just check one thing. There is one dirty hack that I can do. So we want to provide to our. So we want to create our objects. All right. So there is one dirty hack, and I think I finally found it somewhere at the internet. Okay. So let me just actually copy and paste this code. This is going.
We
to
all
be
know
great.
how this is going to end. It's like,
yeah.
I found this on the internet.
Yeah. Let's see. So this is awesome. So I'm actually creating the configuration builder.
Wait, what?
Just follow me. So I want to implement this factory, right? So I have this. I'm creating this configuration builder. I'm loading my application settings. So I have my configuration object in place.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to call my this parameter that I have to pass to my constructor. This one, right?
Yeah.
This one. And then I'm asking for my connection string for my options, which of course is here under my Postgres section, and the connection string value, the connection string key. And then I'm just telling my DB context that I'm using the Postgres SQL. And finally, I can return my new DB context. So I can do something like this. Options builder. Sorry, dot.
I mean, what?
Options.
What? Looks like crap.
Yeah.
Wait.
But let's see if this is going to work.
Yeah, it's crap. Wait.
It is, but
wait, because the chat says also something. Wait, it's like DB context options builder var connection string equals configure.
Yeah, but I have to get the configuration from somewhere. So I cannot inject the configuration here, because if I try to do it, then once again it will fail. I'm pretty sure that I can try it this way. Let's see if I can inject the configuration here. I'm afraid that this will actually fail. Let's see, okay? So let me just drop the database. Let me just remove the database, and let's see if we can recreate this.
I mean, that's nuts. That is something that I was counting on. Yeah, that sort of code is appearing.
So
and so said it works. Wait.
What the? Let's see.
It's GG.
That's on Google. That's on Google. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remove the migrations. I remove the database. So we're going to see.
Shit.
We're going to see
run
if
this one.
I can inject this configuration or not. And wait for it. Boom. Okay.
Wait. What? Wait. No parameterless constructor defined. For what?
Because I cannot do it this way.
Parameterless.
Yeah. So I cannot do it this way for the factory. Okay. I have to remove this and I have to do it this way, I guess. So let's give this one a try. So I remove this constructor from here because it couldn't construct the factory with this configuration. I'm going to build this configuration object here, and let's try it this way.
So this is hack for delivering the configuration object without dependency injection. In nutshell, it's like, I mean,
we have one comment that you need to change something in program CS. Okay, this worked, which is nice. We don't have the method called createHostBuilder. You mean here? You mean, but we are calling createDefaultBuilder from our host, which actually
underneath it's
the
actually
host
called
builder. So unless you have something else in mind, let us know. But I think, yeah, that's the valid method. And as you can see, it worked. So it's a nasty hack. And as you can see, this is the kind of the hack that you actually need only for migration, because otherwise you are not able to somehow, create your migration without this, with this constructor with parameters in place. But once you have the migration in place, the application will start without any issues. It doesn't need a factory.
Oh my god.
This is just awesome. Let's see if this starts. I think it will.
This is just, it's like pure gold.
We'll have to do some. We have to do some digging because I cannot believe this is going to be this way like forever. But so it started, and the stuff is here. So it's
yeah, but EF, yeah, it's using reflection. What?
All right. So do you mean that we should actually remove this top level statement from the program CS? Okay, let's try this one out. This is interesting.
Oh my god! I mean, it's like.
So let's remove the top level statement and let's see if this is going to help.
Or you can. So remove the top level statement or inject DB context into configure method, and that should also work. Then migrate inside. Oh. So, during the configure phase in the startup, you basically just inject this explicit. Okay, but let's just go with the top level statement first because it looks like more elegant solution.
And I think at least from what I tried out, we will actually need a program type later on for some testing because with the top level statement, the integration test for the ISP.NET Core will not work anyway. So the top level statement are cool, but well, they are still buggy.
Yeah, it's great that we have this feature.
I should have a namespace.
I was saying from the very beginning, I'm not the big fan of this. Still, I'm not convinced, and I see that.
Let's see if this is going to help. This is So this things that they will not tell you about unless you face them. So you should be able to remove this magic, right?
From what? No, I think. Wait.
I added.
Okay. Yeah.
And let's remove the factory and let's see if this is going to work.
But was it regarding the?
Yeah.
Wait. Yeah, let's just give it a try with this being commented. But the whole factory can be gone.
I removed the factory because
the
factory is still there. It doesn't help. Let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, it worked. Wow. Thank you guys for this, for removing the top level statement suggestion. But as you can see, we went the hard way. We found the proper solution. So if you want to use the top level statement, you can go with your factory hack.
I mean, it's like, yeah.
So this is awesome. All right, the one last start of the app, and I think we can call it a day. Yeah. think it works. Let's see. Post, get, and let's check. The database should be here.
I mean, I
Yeah.
I really do my best to not to roast the EF core.
So we added the program
I mean-
CS type with this strongly typed methods, which are used by the reflection internally by the framework. So we removed the top level statement and we added this program CS type. This was our change, and then our DB context worked just fine without any sort of factories and other weird stuff.
Yeah, that's gold right there. That's how this needs to be done. Yeah. All right. So let's just see whether this will actually save the.
It worked. I just recreated the database, started the app, and it works. So
But
it's all good.
have you sent any posts?
There is a host, as you can see.
Okay. I see.
It works.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
All right. So at least we got this.
The chat
part.
is saying what? Oh my OMG. Yeah, that's.
Sorry, it wasn't our intention.
I mean, yeah.
I think if we were to leave the top level statement something like this, I can have this method there. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Just leave it as it is. Yeah.
Probably it would work this way.
But it's now it's internal.
Okay, I don't want to.
I'm not quite sure where they added this during the reflection, right? But maybe this needs to be public or something, right? Because the class now it's internal. I mean, this is
I'll have nightmares today. But yeah, at least we got this one right. Cool. So there was nice collaboration.
I think maybe for next slides, I think that will be maybe we could think about some sort of guest from the EF core team. That would be interesting because I truly believe this is no joke, guys. I mean, I truly believe that there is a reason for this, and we are just too dumb for understanding why. And once again, this is no joke. Maybe this I need to find in the docs why is this needs to be defined explicitly. But it's like, that was something fun at the very end.
Okay, so it's been already 2 hours. I think we've already had enough. But we got database in place. We got separate DB context per module. Cool stuff.
Yeah. So to sum this up, what we've done is not so impressive because we added pretty much the same cruddish code for the conferences. We put the EF core, so very simple. We have the DB context. For now, it's like nothing very serious. We have basic configuration. We have the migration being done, and we added another implementation for the repository.
We pretty much completed a single module. So in the next episode, I think we can start adding maybe another module, and then we'll start thinking how to talk between this module, how to work with events, communication. So more interesting stuff.
And then we'll add another module, and this is how we're going to approach our modular monolith.
But the dummy part is gone. The basic part is mostly done.
For sure. This is something that for now we have two guys. Two guys. We like 7 episodes, and we have CRUD for the entity that has 4 properties. So it's like I think that well deserved.
But
that was quite impressive migration. It is. It was. So this is it, and I probably we're not quite sure, but probably the last time live on YouTube, probably we'll move to the Twitch.
If we manage to set it up, we'll let you know.
I think that will be better for us when it comes to managing, better for you when it comes to writing, some sort of comments and using the emojis, and maybe something else will be more entertaining for you. And hopefully for the YouTube, it's not like we are forgetting about the YouTube. We'll basically do our best to do the re-uploads in the higher quality, because what we see in the StreamYard is fine, but afterwards it's like
on the YouTube it's like not impressive.
Yeah,
the code is blurry.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sound is not that nice, even though we have good audio stuff. So
yeah. So that's pretty much it. And thanks for sticking with us.
Thank you.
And
thanks for the help.
And thank you, Yves, for making this episode more entertaining. Yeah.
And for members.
Yeah, we'll see you in the next 2 weeks. Bye.
Yeah.